without further ado, I'd like to have our special guest introduce themselves. Maybe Leo, we start off with you, my friend.
Thanks, Joe. Good evening, good morning, everybody. My name is Leo. I'm currently with ESSEC APEC Singapore campus. I'm leading the Career Services, Alumni, and Corporate Relations team. So, you know what our team does. I think you get to hear it a lot more throughout the session later on. I'm definitely sharing more details. It's good to let our alumnus, our alumni introduce themselves. Over to you, Rafael.
Yeah, thanks, Leo. Hi, everyone. So I'm Raphael. I'm currently working at Amundi, Singapore. Amundi is a French asset manager, and I've been working here at Amundi as an investment analyst for the past 2 years. Before joining Amundi, I was at ESSEC in the Masters in Finance program, and I also studied at the University of Chicago, where I majored in economics.
Awesome. Shubs, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, sure. So hi everyone, my name is Shubhankar. Most people call me Shubs. So I did my SMIP course at ESSEC Singapore campus, the year 21-22. So now I'm working at Standard Chartered Bank as a group strategy associate. Prior to that, prior to my master's at ESSEC, I actually was a undergrad at NUS in Singapore, and I did my undergrad in mechanical engineering. So yeah, that's more about me.
Awesome. Wei Ye?
Yep. So very nice to meet everyone. So I'm Wei Ye, and I am an alumni of the DSBA program. I was there from 2020 to 2021. I'm currently a data scientist at Accenture in the UK London office. So prior to studying at ESSEC, I was studying biomedical engineering in NUS. So yeah, so if you have any questions about the DSBA program or any opportunities after you graduate, feel free to ask them.
Biomedical engineering, did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, that's right.
Very, very interesting. And now you're working at Accenture. It's a very interesting background, guys. I want to hear more about you, your story, but I'd love to hear, maybe you could just tell us, what was your experience like for the folks listening and maybe interested in the program? Raphael, you want to kick us off and share what your experience was like?
Yeah, sure. So the experience for me at the Singapore campus was very positive. I think firstly, I really enjoyed the experience of being in Singapore. It's a really dynamic city, and you have a lot of opportunities. For someone who grew up in Hong Kong, it was always my intention to find opportunities to work in Asia. So I found that having a campus which was situated in Singapore with access to finance professionals in the region really ideal for me. I think something which I would highlight was really positive from my experience at ESSEC was the teaching. I found that at ESSEC there was a very strong balance between teachers who are more academic, but they also have teachers who are actually in the industry, and I find that they were really able to offer some hands-on advice and experience. And this is something which I really cherished during my experience at ESSEC.
Wonderful. So it sounds like it was a combination of Singapore, as you mentioned, it's a financial hub for most of Southeast Asia and perhaps in Asia Pacific now. And then you also talked about how the faculty is a combination of academics and, I guess, practitioners. So you get the best of both worlds, it sounds like.
Right, exactly.
Wonderful. Shubs, I'd love to hear what your experience was like.
So I think my experience will be a bit different from Raphael. So I'm coming from Singapore. I was brought up here, so obviously Singapore is not new to me. But however, coming to ESSEC, I did get a very different experience compared to how I got my experience in NUS. Firstly, in engineering lectures are very lecture-based, so that's something was a bit different at ESSEC, where it's more seminar-based. Class participation was a bit more encouraged, people more open about talking. I got to meet people from different nationalities and also different experiences, which was something that was quite enriching compared to back in my undergrad, where it was mostly Singaporean people that I interacted with on a day-to-day basis.
So it sounds like the diversity of the people within your classroom, learning from different nationalities around the world, sounds like something that was helpful for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. Great. Wei, I'd love to hear what your experience was like.
Yeah, sure. So mine is actually really, really different from Raphael's and Shub's. So for me, I did 1 year in the Paris campus. So that was my first time going to Europe, and I went there in the middle of COVID on 2020. So that was a whole experience. But I think the best thing that I got were all my social networks, all my friends. So it was a small class of about 80 people. And we had about almost 20 to 30 different nationalities in that class. So you can imagine how diverse the group is. And we had people from finance backgrounds, we had people from business background, we had people from tech backgrounds, and we even had people from the arts. So I had one friend who did her undergrad in Korean studies. So that was really interesting. It's just a whole mixing pool. And then I stayed in the middle of Paris, so in the 14, which is about the south part of Paris. So I traveled to 2 different schools, 2 different campuses. So one was ESSEC, which kind of is in the north, and one was Central Superlab, which was in the south. We all stayed, well, a lot of the international students stayed in the same accommodation. So that was actually really fun. Can you imagine? It's kind of like your undergraduate days when you're staying in school together. So I think for me, that was an amazing 1 year, and it started my journey to work overseas. I think if not for ESSEC, I would not have been able to do that. I would not have been right where I am right now. So yeah, it's incredibly life-changing.
Wow, life-changing. Okay, that's great to hear. I think it's one word we hopefully hear more from the students. But once again, I'm hearing a trend here of diversity. So we talked about diversity in terms of nationalities, but I guess also diversity in terms of backgrounds, from finance to Korean arts, which is obviously very, very wide in the spectrum. So I appreciate you guys sharing that. I'd also love to hear, because one of the things we're trying to do is bridge the gap between what you learn in the classroom and then what you're applying in your day-to-day jobs now. So I'd love to hear, as part of the program that you took part in, what are some of the skills or some of the knowledge that you think helped you in your current roles?
So I guess I could go first with this question, Joe. So coming from an engineering background, I knew almost nothing about the business world. I mean, you wouldn't even know how to read a balance sheet or anything of that sort, let alone looking at consulting. So for the SMIP course, for those of you that might not be aware, there are 2 tracks: there's corporate strategy and the strategic consulting. So I was in the corporate strategy track, and I actually wanted to go into a business development role. But this course actually allowed me to look at corporate strategy, look at how the finance world works, look at other business development opportunities as well. And actually, I got interested in consulting through this, quite surprisingly. And that's why right now what I'm doing is internal consulting for a bank, which I never would have thought I would end up in, coming from an engineering background and going to a different track, which is corporate strategy instead of strategic consulting as well.
Interesting. So yeah, it sounds like it's quite a broad, big jump. And I think this is something we see in many of our students, is they may not come from necessarily a business background, but I guess it's one of the reasons that they join is to pick up some of the skills. Like you said, even reading a balance sheet is going to be something very helpful, regardless of what role you're in. But it sounds like you're definitely leveraging it in your corporate strategy role at the moment.
Yeah, definitely I am.
Awesome. Raphael, I'd love to hear what kind of skills or knowledge you picked up during your program that you think are helping you out now.
Yeah, sure. So during my time at ESSEC, I took the corporate finance track. So in this track, there's a strong emphasis on financial modeling. And as a investment analyst in my current role, it's something which has proven very helpful, how to look at individual companies and how to identify investment opportunities. But I think worth highlighting is that ESSEC not only provides you with hard quantitative skills, but also I felt that it provided me with soft skills such as negotiation, networking, and I find that these are equally, if not more valuable than some of the hard skills that I learned during my time at ESSEC.
Negotiation, yeah, I think is one of those where doesn't matter what you're in, it's definitely a valuable skill set that'll help you move up the corporate ladder. So I'm glad that it's one of those that you were able to pick up during the program. Well, yeah, I'd love to hear about your life-changing skills and experience that you picked up.
So I came from biomedical engineering, so I didn't really have much knowledge of data science or data engineering, and that's why I took the DSBA course. And right now, everything that I did in school in ESSEC is actually what I am doing in my work right now. So I think ESSEC really set the strong foundation for me in terms of SQL, R, Python. And I think it's great that I have friends that came into the course with no experience of coding, and they're also data scientists, experts in their own fields right now. So I think as a data scientist, ESSEC really equipped me with the strong technical foundation.
I think it's very encouraging because a lot of folks, they're worried, like you said, to make that jump. They feel like they're coming from a different background and they're going to struggle. They're not going to know how to navigate. But it sounds like, even though you didn't come from that technical background, you were able to pick it up to the program. And it sounds like you're definitely applying it in your current role.
Yep.
Wonderful. It's good to hear. So we've talked about a little bit about networking. Leo, I'd love to get your thoughts because obviously you're working with many, many students. How do you think that the ESSEC, particularly the Singapore campus, really helps facilitate networking, connections among the students and perhaps among the broader business community?
Right. So I think here in ESSEC APAC itself, regardless of what programs you are in, there's always a very close tie-ups with the industry. It can range from having a guest lecturer, from the industry coming in at various points of your different modules. We do things like company visits as well, from time to time. Again, letting the students appreciate what's actually happening out there, right, in the world. Again, letting them have that appreciation of how what they are studying is being applied, in the industry. So what else? We organize a lot of networking events, and many of them also leveraging on our alumni, our very powerful ESSEC alumni community. So it's really very positive vibes, going around. And another point I'd like to add is, because the Singapore campus is it's not a huge one. I mean, you can see from my wallpaper behind. But the comments that I've been hearing is that, it's a very collegial, very cozy kind of community environment, where students really interact, not just within your program. I'm sure, our guest panelists can vouch for that, right? You get to really interact, with many other programs. You take part in all the CCAs. Of course, that is, student life itself, right? So again, coming back to industry partners, guest speakers, career fairs, we just had one yesterday. So again, a very great opportunity, to really network with a number of employers from various sectors. So I would say we do try to provide, both a very customized kind of setting plus a very larger scale setting in terms of networking for the students.
That's great to hear. I want to hear more about the alumni, their experience. But guys, if you have any questions, let us know. Glisel, Jenny, Zihui, let us know in the chat or the Q&A. We'd love to answer those. So anything, questions, comments you guys have, do let us know, and we'll try to answer as many as we can. So we talked about a lot of different things that ESSEC offers. You talked about, the company visits, the career fairs, and all the things like that. I'd love to, once again, pose the question back to, the former students. What were some of the networking opportunities that you found most helpful during your experience?
Sure. So I'll go first. So I think something which I would highlight is that the school organizes a lot of senior professionals to come visit and to come speak to the class. And this was something that I found very helpful just on a personal level. Something which I could share is that the CEO of Amundi for South Asia, he came to our class to speak. He gave an introduction of the asset management industry, as well as Amundi. And then following his speech of about 30 minutes, there was the opportunity to hang around to speak with him. And from there, I was able to get his contact to reach out to him. And eventually, after several meetings, meeting the rest of the team, it developed into a full-time opportunity. So I think here just highlighting one example where networking proved very valuable. But besides Amundi, there were many other companies which came to visit from many different backgrounds. You not only have CEOs, you have the founders of startups, and you even have more junior level people come to speak, associates from the industry who can also offer a different perspective and perspectives which I found very interesting as well.
Oh, it's great to hear. It sounds like you were, through those connections that you were able to land the job that you're in, which I think is incredible, and something we're trying to encourage our students is to interact with some of these folks, build these relationships, because you never know what career doors it's going to open for you. So Raphael, I appreciate you sharing that so much. Shubs, do you have any experience in terms of, we talked about a building network within your student community. Did you have a chance to build it within the business community?
Yeah, so let me add on to what Raphael had mentioned. So other than just having people come down just for talks or like to share what they're doing, we also had some courses that actually were conducted by people in the industry. So for example, we did have one course called Project Finance in this MIP course, which is entirely conducted by someone who's working actively in BNP Paribas. And it's not just a one-time interaction, is you're meeting him for close to 6 to 7 weeks. Every week you're meeting him for a few lessons. So you get the interaction and you get to understand more about the role, not just the content. You just don't stop at the content, but you actually get to understand more about his role and why he's so passionate about what he's doing. And that kind of inspires you to understand more, even though you're not as interested in, let's say, project finance. That was one way that I felt that I get to make connections with the business world, and he can also talk to you about different things you might be thinking, lead you to different people, and that's how you make connections. If he's not the right one, he can lead you to someone he knows or his friend that can potentially be that future employer of yours.
Yes, it's a very good point. A lot of the ESSEC professors are very, very well connected and respected in the business community. So I always encourage my students to be friends with your professor, because I know many of my students still get in touch with me for recommendations and, advice and things like that. So valuable advice, I think, for anyone joining the program. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, too.
Yeah. So I think as part of the DSBA program, we have something called the CRP, the Corporate Research Program, where we actually work with different companies and and get on a project with them. So for me, for example, in my first semester, it was 4 days of school and 1 day of working with the client. So I worked with checkout.com and worked on a lot of deep learning algorithms. So I still keep in touch with my manager from then. And I know that there are a lot of partnerships between ESSEC and these companies. So for example, Artifact. I know a lot of my classmates that got positions within Artifact because of this program. And I think there's a lot of other partnerships that ESSEC has. For example, I know that my junior batch, a lot of them got into Amazon, worked at Amazon as interns because of a potential partnership between the schools. So I think definitely ESSEC provides that kind of networking opportunities.
Absolutely. I want to hear more about the partnerships from Leo in a minute.
Yeah.
We have a question here from one of our audience members. Thank you guys so much. It says, can you briefly discuss the career track after the program? And now we've kind of touched on that with some of the great companies that you guys are working in. But Leo, do you want to help answer that question about some of the career tracks after the program?
I think it really depends on the individual, because as we have many different master's program, the career track would be more dependent on the person's interest, right? And of course during the curriculum experience, their conversations, their interactions, and what helped to shape the preference. Because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? So I think even just now when Shubs mentioned, he didn't expect himself to be where he is right now. So a lot of times it's who you meet, who do you talk to, and sometimes it's just you have an idea and you research, you go deeper into it, you talk to the relevant people, And like I said, ESSEC, we provide, all the resources and opportunity for you to explore, the various options, right? So again, leveraging on what you have accumulated, your strengths, what are your skill sets. So I think it's very individual question. I presume, you really have the choice, the options for choosing. Yeah, but I think more importantly, it's approaching it with the right attitude, right? Because no one can force you to do what you don't like to do, right? But I think having the comfort that there is available resources, support from the school, from the community, the alumni, I think there's that there's really a lot of people out there who would be willing to help you, but you must be also willing to take that first step, and be professional, come with the right attitude, to really impress. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think about it as a buffet when you're with ESSEC. You get so many different opportunities. You're like, oh, I'll try some of this, try some of that. And to your point, because you're getting access to so many different industry experts and leaders, you get to see, okay, this might be a track that I'm interested in, this might be. So you're able to find that out even before you jump into your first job, which is going to be super helpful versus you kind of navigating once you're already in that full-time job. So yeah, to your point, you kind of be proactive. I mean, the buffet is ready for you. You've got to be the one lining up and saying, okay, I would take some of this and some of that. So I think great advice. Leo, thanks so much for sharing that. The other thing that, Wei, I was just speaking about is partnerships. And I know ESSEC has an incredible partnership network. So maybe you want to share a little bit more about that?
Actually, you're posing the question to
sorry, that for you, Leo. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, that's for me, right? All right.
Yeah, sorry.
Maybe I'll just add on. I just give an example of a partnership, because in ESSEC, especially in Singapore, a lot of our master's program, we have a category called industry projects, right? So most of the programs would need to go through one of industry project item. So for example, one of it with our masters in management, it's actually called the industry project item, right? We have a very close partnership with Capgemini, which is one of the IT consulting. So as a partner, they actually help to train the students in certain skill sets in preparation for the team's participation with a client, so to speak, right? With a client, with a corporate partner, so that it's quite intense. Within 3 months, you get that kind of guidance, and don't forget, you also have your professor, your academic mentor, being part of the industry project. So you can see together, not just the client per se, right? Our corporate partners, involved in offering that problem statement. But there's also guidance from another corporate partner who teaches you the skill sets, the strategy, the methodology. So that's one very good example. But apart from that, of course, we do have very close partners with a lot of MNCs who regularly, so-called support us, whether it's providing us with projects, guest speakers, company visits, and so on. So we do have a lot of very strong partners.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, they're not only getting trained in the classroom, but they're getting trained by some of these world-class organizations in terms of how they run their strategies, how they run their taxes, things like that, which I think is super valuable. Like I said, it's intense, but I think, having that experience, I think is going to be super valuable once they get outside of the classroom. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear from the students once again about your most memorable experience. I'm sure there were many, but is there one experience that really stands out during your time with ESSEC?
I think I could go first with this one. So I think one of the most valuable experiences for me was this Asian Strategy Challenge course that we have in SMIP. So what happens here is you have a 6-month-long course where you're tied up to a company and you're actually helping them solve a problem that they are facing. So over here, I was working for this company called OIO. It's a blockchain company. So at that point of time, I didn't know much about crypto or blockchain at all, let alone finance. So getting to understand them, understand the company inside out. They were a startup, and trying to understand the problems they are facing, real life problems on a day-to-day basis, and meeting them week in, week out with two of my teammates to try to solve the problem that they can put into effect almost immediately. It's no longer theoretical, but it's rather practical already. While learning this all on the go, well, I think was something that I enjoyed a lot, and I think it was a very valuable lesson, and I'm using that on a day-to-day basis when I'm solving problems for the bank that I'm working at the moment.
Wonderful. Great to hear. Raphael, I'd love to hear about your most memorable experience.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of experiences, so hard to pick only one. But I remember when the career services organized a networking event, and we had the opportunity to go visit an actual company, to go speak to professionals, and I remember feeling quite uncomfortable at first, feeling a bit outside of my comfort zone. But ultimately, I think I really appreciate the opportunity of being put outside my comfort zone, and so it's somewhat of a uncomfortable experience. So in that sense, it was memorable. But now reflecting back upon it, I see how it made me stronger, and how it improved me. But I think secondly, something to highlight, not so much of a moment, but more of an experience, was really the start of my time at ESSEC, which was during COVID. So it's not really applicable to current students or people who are applying, but I remember how it was something very new for the students and something new for the school to be in this situation. But I was really impressed by how the school was able to adapt to the situation through technology. And even though we weren't able to meet students or to meet teachers in person, I still feel like I really enjoyed my experience online.
Yeah, it's a funny one because I first started teaching at ESSEC. It was right during COVID. So I think I was one of the first batch to do it. And I think, yes, the turnaround time, because we literally had to start class like a week later and they got everything set up, everything was virtual. And I think it was going back to uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for us as on the professors on the other side. But like I said, looking back, it was one of the most memorable experiences because it really pushed us out of the comfort zone. It's got us, comfortable to doing what we're doing now. So I think it's good advice for everyone is to kind of be uncomfortable getting outside your comfort zone, because that's where you grow the most as a professional. So Raphael, I'm glad to hear that you did step out of your comfort zone and it was a great experience for you. All right. Well, yeah, I have to hear about your life-changing, memorable experience. What was it? Tell us all.
I think the memorable experience, well, it's more of a fun one though, not really academic based. But so another thing that the DSBA program has is a study trip where we go overseas. So of course that's really fun. So for my batch, we went to Dijon. It was about a 4-day, 3-nights trip. And then we went there, we met people in different companies, but at the same time, we also got to explore, do a bit of sightseeing. So we went swimming in the lake with the whole class. We went wine tasting. So I think that for me was probably one of the most memorable experience in the program.
Yeah, I can see the way your face is lighting up when you're talking about it. Sounds like it was an
Great
incredible
memories.
experience. Yes, and for all the wine connoisseurs, there's no better place to savor wine than in France. So I appreciate you sharing that. Guys, if you have any questions for us, Dan Cai, Chu Yan, Hui Chen, 请问一下，我们都没问题，所以可以问一下。Yeah, so guys, if you have any questions, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, I'd love to hear about some of the advice you would give to some of the folks here. If you were just starting back on the program, what advice would you give them?
Sure. I'll go first if that's okay. So I think my advice, I think of something which has been touched upon already. But it's really to not be afraid to engage with the teachers. I think at ESSEC, a lot of the courses have have a practice of cold calling. And initially, some students might feel uncomfortable having to answer questions on the spot. But I think when you find yourself in a work environment, you'll find that this experience in class is something which it prepares you well. You know, having to think on the spot, having to come to class already prepared for the fact that you might be spontaneously asked a question. And just secondly, regarding engaging in the class, I think you shouldn't hesitate to speak to the teachers at ESSEC. They're all very warm and welcoming. You can speak to them after class, and I found that they were always easily accessible and willing to give me advice, not only for my academic studies, but also career advice.
So I'm so glad you mentioned that you found it valuable, that, you know, because as on the other side, professors, you know, we try to encourage people to speak up in class because, like you said, this is what it's like in the real world. If you're in a meeting, you know, and your boss calls on you, you have to be able to answer it like that. You can't just be sitting there thinking you're out like, maybe he could answer. So obviously it's something that a lot of people going back to feel uncomfortable doing, especially if you don't come from that academic background. But I think what we're trying to do is to instill that ability to think on the spot, to communicate your ideas, because once again, it sounds like it's very helpful when you get outside the classroom. It doesn't matter what role you're doing, some very, very valuable skill set. So Raphael, thanks so much for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Shubs, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So I think I'll take a step back from what Raphael had mentioned. So mine would be more along the lines of thinking about going for a master's to begin with. I think a lot of people would be in the same boat, wondering whether they should go, look at the time, the opportunity cost of the time, the money, and etc. So I would say that if you're thinking about it, give it some serious consideration. Don't think about the money so much, you can earn that back. Think more about what you want to do, think more about where you want to be. And there's never going to be a right time. You can think about it, I'll do it next year, Don't keep pushing it. If it's already something you're thinking about, reach out to ESSEC's marketing team. They're really helpful. That's what I did as well when I was stuck. I just reached out, downloaded lots of program brochures to understand what I want, talk to them, understand, and maybe through that you can clear your head a bit more and take the leap.
Yes, I think that's great advice. You know, like you said, oftentimes we feel like it's never a great time. We postpone it, and then we either don't do it and we regret it later in life. But I think, you know, just taking the plunge. And I think going back to your point, I mean, the ESSEC marketing team is very, very warm, very friendly. And so they're always happy to answer any questions that you guys have, even after this session. So highly encourage you to reach out to them because they can really help clarify any of the questions or things that you have on your mind. So thank you so much for sharing that, Shubs. What advice would you give to these folks?
Yeah, well, I think I would say don't be afraid to put yourself out there, you know, whether it's going for events, whether it's reaching out to your professors, like what Raphael mentioned. And I think specific to the DSBA program, because I guess we all think that, oh, it's a tech program. So if I come from a business background or arts background, I might feel that I have less to contribute, or I might feel like there's a bigger gap. I would say definitely don't feel that way, because just remember that you bring a part of a very different and very special perspective to the group, and that's the whole beauty of being in a diverse group, a diverse team. And I would say that at any point of the program, if you feel discouraged, if you feel that you can't finish an assignment or you're not sure what to do, just remember that, you know, alumni, we've been through it. We have felt the exact same way that you have. So don't hesitate to reach out to alumni, because ESSEC has such a strong network of alumni, and every one of us is very happy to help. So if you reach out to us via LinkedIn, definitely we're happy to help or answer any questions.
No, I think that's great advice as well, too. I know some of our students, before they even join the program, reach out to some of the alumni just to find out, hey, what was your experience like? Did you enjoy it, et cetera? You know, everyone enjoyed it, obviously. But I think it's a good thing to, you know, either when you're in the program or even before, reaching out to some of these folks, because it's very easy to find them on LinkedIn. You can just find out who graduated from ESSEC, either in your country or overseas, and just say, hey, I'm thinking about joining the program. Would it be okay if I catch up with you to find out how your experience was, and so on. So I think it's a really good advice. Leo, I'd love to hear it as well too. What's some of the advice that you give students?
Well, I mean, for potential students,
Yeah.
well, in a sense, it's really all about managing expectations. In my own opinion, So again, echo what all of you have mentioned. Research, and research. Talk to people. Talk to people who have been there, who have done that. But I think it's important to know yourself as well, because you need to understand what the curriculum offers. How is it being delivered? What works for you. Maybe you're someone who is good at projects, dealing with teams, and others could be there should be a good mixture, and you need to understand that how is the module being taught, what entails, what kind of preparation do you have to do. How do you try to visualize it, right? You try to visualize going through it. Is it something that is appealing to you? Because I mean, at the master's level, right, it's really very defined, right? It's something that you want to get to in a very targeted way. So you need to be very sure, right? And but again, leave some room, for experimentation, right? And discover new things. But the initial preparation, I mean, just like applying for any job, it works the same way, right? You try to talk to people who have been there, who have done that. I think get a more holistic view and insights, I would say.
Yeah, I think going back to what we were talking about, that also helps manage expectations as well too, because obviously you don't want to sign up for something where it's kind of misaligned with what you expected. So I think speaking with some of these folks, whether it's the great alumni we have here or the marketing team or some of the alumni in your kind of area, it's a great way to better understand so you don't have those misalignments in terms of expectations. So great advice, guys. I really appreciate you sharing that. Like I said, guys, if you have any questions for us, let us know. Otherwise, I want to switch things up a bit, and I'd love to hear more about your guys' current roles, maybe some of the challenges, or what are some of the things that people who are looking to eventually, after they graduate from ESSEC, fingers crossed, they're going into consulting or finance. What are some of the things they need to be aware of?
I guess I could go first. So, more about my role at the moment. So, at Standard Chartered Bank, we are present in over 50 to 80 markets in the world. We are an emerging bank. And what we do in every bank, every region is a bit different. In some regions, we only have a retail presence. Some places we have institutional presence, and some places both. So every market is different for us, and a lot of times where either the market's not performing, or the market's growing too slow according to our expectations, or we are not doing as well, or we are doing too well, and we want to see what is happening there and how we could probably bring those practices from one market to the other, or look at our competitors. So basically, what I'm describing to you is basically consulting, but I'm just doing it for the bank. The client's always the bank. It's just a different business in a different region that is my client. I'm talking to them on a regular basis, understanding what problems they're facing, what they're not able to solve. We go from a outside perspective, from an outsider point of view, to understand why they're facing that issue and whether that could be solved, because sometimes there's just some restrictions that they might be facing on their own end. But we go from that outer perspective, we can put it into perspective. Sorry, I'm using the word perspective too much, but basically what I could do is understand why they're facing a certain way and make it a bit more holistic for them to make their case eventually and improve. So I only do the strategy part. I do not do the execution. That's what the business does in the end. What we do is eventually go to the board or go to a different group of MT members, where they would finally look at the proposal, and then the business would take it from there. That's what I usually do. And basically, if you're going into the job market after a master's, what you should do is actually leverage on the career services at ESSEC. What they have helped a lot with is, when I was very clueless, is go through my resume multiple times. Leo, Ting, all these, and a lot of other people as well, look through my resume, try to make it a bit more crisp, try to make it stand out in terms of, because the job markets there's always people looking for jobs. It's very difficult. Everyone knows that. But this kind of helps. Also, just talking to them, preparing for some interviews, thinking about what kind of questions would come out about finance, about banking. I talked to a few people. I think that's something that helps a lot as well. And I think eventually all boils down to networking and being confident to be able to get that role that you want.
It's great advice. Thank you so much for sharing that, Shubs. Raphael, you want to add on to that?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So just a bit about what I'm doing. So I'm working in asset management and working in the investments team. I think my advice to people interested in asset management is first to get an idea of what asset management is. So we're looking after our clients' money and trying to sustainably grow or protect that sum of money. But I think having an understanding of the opportunities which are available is also quite helpful, because asset management is quite broad. You not only have investments, but you also have marketing, you have risk, you have IT, and you have traders. So I think understanding how all of these teams work together is quite relevant. Just a bit about my role. So I'm in a 2-year graduate program, and essentially working across all aspects of the portfolio. But I spend most of my time choosing which investments to make, which investments are most appropriate. And as I mentioned before, I think choosing what you study at ESSEC is quite important in determining the path you take. As I mentioned, I took financial modeling, I took corporate finance, and the skills that I acquired there are quite relevant to what I'm doing today. I think just a final piece of advice. So I took a 2-year graduate program, but I know a lot of students are interested in summer internships. And I would say when you first enter the workforce, you have structured as well as unstructured programs. So in asset management, when you first join, the programs tend to be a bit more unstructured. Whereas if you join like the summer internship program of an investment bank, usually what you're expected to do and what you will do is very clearly laid out for you. So I think having this mindset or trying to understand what mindset you have, whether you want to be someone, part of a structured program or part of a unstructured program is quite helpful. I think just speaking from my experience, when you're joining a unstructured training program, you need to have quite a good understanding of what you want and what you want to take away from your experience, because ultimately, sure, that there are some daily tasks which I do on a regular basis, but also there are quite a few projects where it requires my own initiative to take on and accomplish these tasks as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And now I know who to go to for investment advice. So Raphael, thank you so much. Well, yeah, I'd love to hear about your thoughts as well too.
Yeah, sure. So just to recap, so I'm working as a data scientist in Accenture. Accenture is an IT consultancy. So I think it's very important to be flexible, actually. So I came in as a data scientist, but I have been put on projects where I worked in data engineering or data analytics. And currently, I'm actually working on a data strategy program. So they're all data related, but of course, they're all very different. And I think it also depends on the business demand and needs. So to give you guys a bit more context right now, I would say data engineering is kind of construction of a building, and data scientist is more of the interior design. So without the construction, you can't really perform interior designing. So there's a huge demand for data engineering right now. And that's why a lot of roles that are open within Accenture or in the consulting world are data engineering based. So that being said, I think it's very important to have an open mindset, to be open to learn all these different skills. I came in and I learned a lot on the job, and that's what I believe consulting gives you. So yeah, that's what I think is important, to know coming into consulting as a data scientist or a business analyst.
Yeah, it's great to hear. It sounds like it's definitely a hot market in terms of jobs as well for the folks who are interested after their career at ESSEC. Thank you so much, guys. We have a question from the audience. It says, can you give any advice for someone who is from a different background on how to better combine their previous major with a business major. I am from an energy industry and want to contribute the energy transition with both engineering and a business knowledge. What are your advice for this person? Wei, do you want to answer that one? Because I know you came from a different background.
Definitely. I think when you mention a business, I guess a business program, I'm not sure if you're thinking of the SMIT program or the DSBA program, because I believe that these two programs gives different outcomes and different benefits. So I guess I can speak for the DSBA program. You mentioned you come from the energy side, if I'm not wrong. So what I believe is that, so I have worked for energy clients, data in energy clients. They are very specific, industry specific knowledge that would help you. But at the same time, whatever data work that I learned from ESSEC, for example, I was building databases for this specific utilities company. So knowing how, for example, I think for us in the moment, learning how the different levels or different weather would affect a certain measurement that we're looking at really helps. So I think for data side, it's more of using these specific industry knowledge to help you understand the data better. So I think Raphael and Shubs will be able to provide the SMIT perspective on this.
Yeah, Shubs, you want to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think coming from the energy side, you definitely would know how you would definitely be good with numbers. That's what I'm kind of assuming. And also on top of that, you actually would be, I think you'll be quite good in the consulting kind of role, because there are lots of specific consulting companies out there that do, for example, there are certain companies that just do sustainability, for example, or some just do specifically water treatment or water based. So there are lots of this kind of consulting companies out there that you could possibly fit in, where energy is kind of used everywhere, even oil and gas, even in sustainability, even banks use some kind of technology as well. So in terms of that, basically what I'm going for is, with this, you don't have to think about being stuck in just an energy background. You can use that for anything in terms of consulting role, and thinking of how this energy sector that you work in works could kind of be adaptable to whatever you go on to in the future. So I think the SMIP course in that case could help in a way where it could give you a outer perspective a bit more, and you can go a bit more focused into if you want to stay in the energy sector.
Yeah, it's great advice. I could tell that we have some consultants on today's session, because I feel like we're doing some real live consulting. Guys, these guys charge big bucks for their consulting. So ask them any questions. You guys are getting some. I thought that was a wonderful answer. So thank you so much for sharing that, Shubs. Awesome. Person says, thank you guys so much. Yeah, great advice, guys. So if you have any questions, like I said, you have the top consultants in the world over here. So ask them anything you want. Raphael, anything you want to add on to that?
I think just a few quick comments. So Amundi is very involved in the energy transition. So ESG plays a very big part of Amundi's DNA, and they're very proud of being one of the first asset managers to incorporate ESG into their investment process. So ESG is actually something which I experience every day. And actually within Amundi, we have a separate ESG team, a team of ESG analysts who is constantly monitoring the energy transition. So I think with your background, it's something which is definitely a very relevant topic, especially in finance. So I think coming from a different background or a different degree is not something which should to tell you at all.
That's great advice. I think once again, you definitely have transferable skills that you've picked up. It sounds like these some of the advice these guys have given you. Once again, as we talked about earlier, stepping outside your comfort zone. If you are looking to make that jump, then hopefully the ESSEC program is something that will help you, bridge that gap a little bit easier and faster for you. So thank you guys so much for all the questions. If there are no further questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up for today. But as always, we really appreciate you joining it. If you have any questions, we have the wonderful ESSEC marketing team who is joining today, and I'm sure they'll send you some their contact details after this. But yes, for everyone watching, listening, really, really appreciate your great questions and your participation today. And also for our panelists today. Thank you guys so much. I learned a lot as well too. Even with my old gray hair, I learned quite a lot from you guys. So thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your busy days to speak to all of the great folks today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, you guys have a wonderful evening, wonderful morning, wherever you are, and we'll hopefully see you soon on the ESSEC campus. Thanks so much, guys, and take care.
Thank you. Bye.